Welcome to Lockbox, a podcast providing real estate professionals with action items for success. My name is Jeffrey Brogger, and I'm going to be your host. I'm the founder of two real estate marketing and tech companies, STEEZY.Digital and realnurture.io. In this podcast, you'll learn from top 1% real estate and mortgage brokers the exact secrets to their success. Welcome to Lockbox. Welcome to Lockbox. My name is Jeffrey Brogger, and I am here with Jorge Fajardo. Jorge, thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Jeffrey. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So kick it off. Tell our listeners who you are, where you're from.
Yeah, so my name is Jorge Fajardo. I am managing partner with Keystone Property Investments. We're located in South Florida. We're primarily a real estate investment firm. We do all types of syndications in different asset classes. You know, we do single family rehabs, standard fix and flips. We do single family development, ground up development, as well as multifamily syndications for stabilization, repositioning. We also do new construction as well. You know, we have a conventional retail brokerage arm as well, and we also lend. And recently we branched out also into the tech space. So we kind of do a little bit of everything, but it's all, you know, interconnected under the way I see it, under the same umbrella, which is real estate.
Right. Now, it's so interesting how so many aspects of the industry, they tie together around the transaction. And the real estate professional is typically so sold to on a daily basis because they're the focus point of a massive transaction, and there are so many service providers along the way. And so I think it's more common nowadays for brokerages, investment firms to start to vertically integrate is kind of like the corporate term for it. It's like we were doing marketing, you know, out of house, now let's bring it in house. We were doing, you know, the capital portion out of house, now let's bring it in house. And then, you know, that way they can serve their clients better, you know, offer better rates, better terms, better everything. And so I think it's a really smart thing to do as you grow because it just gives you this unique competitive advantage. That's awesome. I'm curious what got you into the real estate industry to start with.
Well, I got into real estate back in 2002. Fresh out of college, I was coming out of Florida State University, FSU, go Noles, with a degree in finance. And I had two options. You know, I thought I wanted to be a stockbroker. I had an offer to go to work at a company, LaSalle Street Financial, brokerage out of Chicago. They had a branch office down here in South Florida. And then my other option was to go into mortgage lending. And so I had a few friends that were in the mortgage lending side. And, you know, 22 years old, coming out of college, they had just graduated maybe the semester before me, and they're showing me their paychecks. They're like, hey, we made, you know, 12 grand this month, 15 grand this month. At 22 years old, you know, you're like, whoa, this is, it's like, I'm rich.
Amazing.
Like, you know, and I had some other friends in the other, and they're like, well, you know, it's a grind. And, you know, it's like, well, let me go over here. This seems to be kind of the path of least resistance. So, you know, from there, I got into the mortgage industry. Eventually, ended up opening my own mom and pop mortgage brokerage, all the way from, you know, 2004 through about 2008, right when the housing market crashed. You know, I was kind of riding high at that point, 28 years old, not a care in the world, thought it was going to be, you know, like rainbows and unicorns the whole way through, right? And then sure enough, you know, a little bit of a wake-up call. So from there, I took my lending and banking and housing knowledge, and I parlayed that into the consumer protection side. I went to work at a law firm that specialized in foreclosure defense. And eventually from there, I became their director of loss mitigation, where we were focusing primarily on working out settlements for the foreclosure side, meaning loan modifications, short sales, short payoffs, you know, just different types of settlements to help out the distressed borrowers at the time. And, you know, I did that from about 2008, 2009 till about 2015, when I actually opened the company, Keystone Property Investments. And it's funny because the reason I did that is because through the loss mitigation side, especially in the short sale side, you know, we were obviously helping out our clients, but I was noticing that, you know, we were selling the properties, or, you know, the same buyers kept coming back, buying multiple properties, obviously discounted properties that were, being sold as short sales. And then I'm like, well, that looks interesting. Before the crash, I had 4 rentals, okay, which I actually ended up giving up through the short sale process myself because they were, completely upside down.
So in '08, you actually ended up forfeiting those 4 through the short sale process. And now 10 years later, you're on the other side of it, seeing the process happen. Is that right?
Yeah. It's interesting because I found myself in '08 negotiating my own short sales before anyone really understood what a short sale was, before it was such a popular term. I mean, quite honestly, it was kind of like trial by fire because I found myself negotiating with the bank on basically a short sale, my own properties, without really fully understanding it at the time. So that was a crash course in loss mitigation, if you will, which I then was able to use that experience and parlay it. I mean, with the law firm, we had a weekly local radio show down here called the Home Mortgage Law Show. And it was so prevalent, especially down here in South Florida, the number of foreclosures at the time that, we at one point we had over 5,000 clients,
Wow.
and so it was a large firm. And so we were able to help a lot of people. At some point during that period of time, I got the bright idea to go to law school. So I ended up getting my law degree. I don't practice, but it comes in handy every single day. And so, from there, we started, the investing side. One thing led to another. We started primarily wholesaling. From there, we started rehabbing. Eventually, we were averaging about, 2017, 18, 19, I would say about 30 to 40 rehabs a year. We were buying at a pace of 7 to 10 properties a quarter. And
this is single family?
These were all single family at the time. Mm-hmm. And that's when we said, well, hey, we're obviously, listing all of our flips, we're paying all this money out, in commissions. Why don't we, bring it back to this side of the table? And so my partner decided to go ahead and get her brokerage, her broker's license. And we opened the brokerage, which is an arm of Keystone, which is KPI International Realty. And then, the rest is history.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, great story and timeline. It all revolves around real estate, really, but just different facets of it and continuing to evolve the vision. That's great. And I'm curious now in, 2021, what was your, I don't want to say transaction volume because that doesn't really sum it up, but, I want to paint the picture of where you are now and then have you give advice to those that might be just a little bit behind you on the journey and looking to level up. So how do you measure your business?
So absolutely. And so, the first thing I'll say is that my goal primarily is to share my journey and for others to see that it's possible. So I don't proclaim to have even reached where I want to be, where their goals are. I consider that, we're somewhere in the middle of the road. And so I'm hoping that someone that's maybe starting on their journey can take some lessons from me, someone that's maybe more attainable, more within their reach, as opposed to someone that perhaps, it may seem too far out of their reach or too, maybe unrealistic. So, sure. I want to kind of give the people that are coming up, behind us sort of the hope and the vision that, hey, look, if this person can do it, I can do it. And so right now where we are, for example, on the investing side, as I mentioned before, we have 38 doors, multifamily. We had another small 20-unit building that we sold within the last year or so. So now we have left with 38 doors. We flipped over 150 single families in the course of the past, let's say, 5 years or so. And as I mentioned, I'm proud of that because we started basically wholesaling. I remember when I was, trying to figure out where we were going to get the money to fund our first flip. And now where I sit here today, we actually have several 7-figure spec home luxury development projects going on, with a few more in the pipeline coming up with, larger development projects. So we have about 15 million under management. And our goal is to hopefully hit 50 by the end of the year. So for, whatever's left on the third quarter here, and obviously on the fourth quarter, we're looking to almost triple where we're at right now based on what we actually have in the pipeline. And so we're very proud of that. And, on the broker side, because we started with just basically our goal was just to sell our own deals. Now we're growing that as well. So we're in recruitment mode. And so we're trying to grow the brokerage as well.
That's awesome. And I'm curious if you have any advice for either the investor. I guess the investment would be the best area of your expertise. The investor that might be doing a couple properties a year, a couple, 2, 3, 4 a year, and would like to level up to doing, you mentioned acquiring 7 to 10 a quarter, and that would be a massive jump for someone that is only doing a few a year. So what kind of things do they need to focus on in order to get to that next level?
Well, the main thing is relationship building. Okay. So you have to start building relationships with the contractors in your area, with lenders in your area, hard money lenders, private lenders. I'm a huge proponent of leverage. And obviously, if you have to know how to use leverage properly, right? So you don't get yourself in trouble. So definitely educate yourself. But when it comes to leverage, that's how we grew our business. We started using the syndication model before we even realized that we were actually syndicating, where basically, and, granted, I did have a little bit of an advantage because I come from the lending world originally. And so I understand how leverage works. But that was basically our model. We would partner up, basically used to joint venture, the term joint venture, but it's really a syndication with 1 or maybe 2 funding partners, as we call them. And so we would take on the debt side and they would bring in the equity side. In other words, the money for the down payment, the carrying costs, holding costs, so on and so forth. And we would just form a joint venture, 50-50, 60-40, whatever structure we negotiated for that particular deal, that particular property. And it just grew from there, and again, it was building relationships with my investors or like I said, funding partners, as I like to call them, and as well as our lenders. And so we got to the point where, we have lenders offering us excellent terms. We're able to fund, even now in the new construction, the majority of the transaction through the debt side, and just, whatever we need to cover the gap with on the equity side, which allows us to, do multiple deals with a finite or limited amount of capital on that end.
Right.
And now we've taken that same model and we've gone from, a $200,000 flip to where right now I have, a $3 million build on one property, 1.5 on another, and so on and so forth. And so it's just a matter of getting that knowledge and slowly but surely applying those lessons and scaling and not being afraid of the numbers. Because at the end of the day, the difference between 200 and 2 million is just, an extra zero. And so if you know how to work the numbers and you're confident in your ability, then that's the key. And obviously you have to build up to that.
Got it. And a big focus on relationships, which all my top producing guests say that. It's so funny that it always comes back to relationships. And on the investment side, you mentioned relationships, not only with your clients, with your capital partners, but also with contractors and lenders. And, you got to have so many other relationships outside of just being a real estate professional and focusing on buyers and sellers, right? But with that being said, even in the real estate side, solely, you have to have so many relationships with, great escrow people in your area, because hey, if escrow is falling through, then that's not a good thing, right? And it's all about relationships. It's every episode I ask that question that comes up. It's a reminder to me to like double down on my relationships. So thanks for bringing that up. Appreciate it.
It's funny. I was going to say on that. Yeah, I had a funny story. My first flip was actually my equity partner was actually also the contractor. So, this was someone that I had met through the local RIA, Real Estate Investor Association down here in Miami. And we had, struck up a friendly relationship. They also did inspections. So even on my wholesales, they were doing all my inspections, which I would turn around and use as a negotiation tool to maybe get a price reduction that I could either pass on to my buyer or increase my yield spread. So it was a nice relationship that I had with this contractor. And, the day came when I had a great deal that I just didn't want to just wholesale it, pass it on. And I approached them about it and said, hey, do you want to partner up? I'll get the loan. You bring the rehab budget and you do the project. Who better than to manage the project to make sure that it comes in on time and under budget than the person that's putting up the money themselves, right? And And sure enough, it worked out. And since then, we've done probably maybe a dozen deals together. And so that was a great lesson that I took from that I apply even to this day, where I don't necessarily, partner up with all my contractors, but at the same time, I build that relationship with them. And same thing on the escrow side, with my closing attorney, we're great friends to this day. And we met through investing, and we've actually partnered up on another, handful of deals that we've actually, as partners, gone in and acquired the property, and it's all worked out great as well. And, I go to them for all my closings, so,
Right.
So again, it's all about that relationship. So that's really the key.
Got it. Makes sense. And now I want to focus on your single most important action that you take on a daily basis that attributes the most to your success. Do you have any one thing that's super important and you attribute a lot of your success to?
Yeah, it's literally taking action. That's the one single, most important thing I would say, because I've personally fallen sort of victim to this, where, the procrastination, right? Where, if you have sort of your day mapped out, and, if you kind of just sit there and overthink it or put something in the back burner, it just becomes, the snowball effect that then could become overwhelming. And to me, it's always been about taking action, where, for example, I hear a lot of people say, well, I took a course, but the course didn't work out. It was a scam, or this, that, or the other. And I'm like, listen, I've gone to a lot of these courses. I invested a lot in education. But the one key factor that I see across the board every time between the people that are successful and the ones that aren't is taking action in and of itself. There's a lot of people that'll sit there. You hear the term paralysis by analysis all the time, right? Where they're like, well, I'm looking at this property and, I'm studying the numbers, and they don't really pull the trigger. They don't make a decision. They don't take action. And one of two things happens. Either if they do intend on taking action, they eventually do, chances are that deal, if it's really a good deal, it's not going to be there. Right. I mean, I've learned this lesson where I've missed out on deals by literally by hours, where, I looked at it this morning. I said, listen, let me come back to you. And later that afternoon, I'm talking about 4 or 5 hours later, hey, I'm ready to go. And it's like, wow, it's not there anymore.
Right.
And it really is that quick. And so, just learning to trust your ability to make decisions. Okay. And be able to make those decisions quickly and act upon them quickly, I think just across the board is one of the most important factors especially in the investing side.
I couldn't agree more. One of my coaches said, Jeff, you're a wicked implementer. And what he meant by that was, I went through some coaching like 4 years ago, and they had challenged me to charge more for what my agency was offering. But I intrinsically knew that meant that I needed to add more value, because you don't ever get something for nothing. And if you do, it's not going to last long. The person will find out, whatever. So if you want to sustain success, you have to offer value that exceeds whatever you're charging for it. And so when they said you got to double your prices, I'm like, wow, okay, let's do this. And so I told them to give me a month. I blew up everything that I had been doing previously and completely reinvented my business from the ground up, and like resurfaced 4 weeks later with a brand new offer, ready to go. And they're like, wow, you really dove in, took action, and implemented everything that we suggested that you do. And I was like, yeah, that's why I'm paying you for coaching. Like, I wanted that guidance. And I feel like they probably have so many of their students or, their mentees that come through. They give them advice or coaching and direction, and they just don't implement. So action's huge. That's the entire foundation of this podcast. Action items for success from top real estate professionals.
Yeah. The gap between idea and success is the implementation. Otherwise, the idea just dissolves into thin air if you don't act on it.
Yep, absolutely. So nowadays, I'm curious how you're sourcing deals. What's your percentage of referral business to new business that's coming from like some kind of lead generation source? Yeah,
so that's sort of where our tech side comes in. So about a year ago, let me backtrack a little bit. So okay. I was always very interested in, paid ads, Facebook ads, social media ads, whether IG, Facebook, even YouTube. And it's one of those things where it's like a well-known secret that has the most mystery in it, because no one knows how to really, or the majority, especially in the real estate space, the majority of people in real estate space don't really know how to use it properly. And so where the tech side comes in is that we've actually developed our own lead gen platform that we've been beta testing in our own business for the last year. And now recently, over the course of the last 3 or 4 months or so, somewhere at the beginning of the last quarter, we started beta testing it with other real estate agents, and it's been working out great. We're using our own IP, our intellectual property, and essentially what it is that it uses artificial intelligence, our own algorithms, in conjunction with the Facebook Pixel to optimize targeting and retargeting, and we're able to really bring down our cost per lead down with actually very, very high quality leads. So, and we're actually using it in multiple verticals. So we're using it in our retail brokerage side, as well as our investing side. That's, so for the most part, if you think about it, the process is the same. You're still targeting homeowners or sellers, at least from the investor side, right? Where the idea is, okay, let's look for a certain type of property where it's distressed property, so on and so forth on the investment side. But on the retail side, obviously, let's just target anybody that, that's a potential client, whether it's a buyer or a seller. And so we've been perfecting it on those two verticals, and we're planning to now implement it in our third vertical, which is the lending side of our business. And so that's something that we've been placing a very heavy emphasis on because we do plan on actually rolling it out, hopefully here I would say by the beginning of the fourth quarter, and start actually marketing it out to the public. So that's our primary source of leads right now. And then again, everything else, comes from word of mouth, relationships. We built some relationships with, we have an acquisitions team. And so we have relationships with, asset managers from lenders. On the investing side, we have, asset managers that we talk to that send us deals, other brokers that send us deals first, even wholesalers that'll send us deals because they know that we perform, that will actually close. And so, we do what we say we're going to do. And so that's going back to the whole relationship aspect of it, that, once you establish yourself and you build a reputation, then sort of like the deals come to you more easily.
Right. No, that makes sense. Are you prepared for some follow-up questions about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. I mean, you said higher quality leads, lower cost. And, talking to a marketing agency owner myself, that obviously hits on some key things that every single client wants: higher quality, lower cost. So, if you've created some algorithm or formula that has accomplished that goal, that's very interesting. So I'm curious mainly about the multifamily space, because generating leads for single family homes is so different than generating leads for sellers of 5 units and up. So
I agree.
do you have, I know that you're in multifamily syndications, you've been in both sides. Do you have a lead gen product for multifamily?
So we're still in the testing phase, stages for the multifamily, because again, it's all about the targeting. But when it comes in the single family space, for example, we're seeing through Facebook paid ads on let's say a $5 to $7 daily ad spend, we're looking at about 130 to 150 leads per month, which is bringing our cost per lead down to anywhere between 90 cents to $1.10 per lead. And as you know, coming from the marketing standpoint, it's more of a warm lead because now they're responding to an ad and they're expecting to hear back from you as opposed to cold calling. And so with the systems that we have in place that go along with that. So the way that our lead gen platform works is, as I mentioned before, we have all our own IP. So we actually have, it took us about a year to get our own plugin license directly with Facebook. So we can run everything directly from our platform. So we're also focused on the user experience, the accessibility, making it easy for a real estate agent, let's say, for example, to come in and be able to use this platform themselves, where I found that there was a big gap in the market where technology, nowadays, the way things are going with Zillow, iBuyers, and Redfin, and all these big companies using technology to their advantage, I feel that real estate agents that aren't using that, and even investors that aren't using it, are going to slowly but surely be left behind. So from the user interface standpoint, as I mentioned before, it's something that everybody knows works, but you also hear on the flip side of it horror stories where, I put in all this money and I don't get any leads, or my accounts gets blocked, and now I can't unblock my account, my Facebook account, so on and so forth. And so we've sort of made that easier for the end user. And on the other side of that, there's other systems that come in place with it, right? So what do you do once you get the lead? Obviously, you have to have other systems in place to be able to follow up with that lead, manage those leads. And so we've created an all-in-one integrated system for that.
And does that include chat marketing? I noticed one of your ebooks online was like messenger bot strategies or something along those lines. And my agency is really big into chat marketing. So is that something that is included as far as the follow-up after the lead is submitted?
Absolutely. So let's say you have someone in bed scrolling to their phone at 2 a.m. Obviously you're sleeping. Unless you have someone sitting around the clock 24 hours, more often than not, you're not going to be able to get back to that lead till the next day or something like that. And as we know that when it comes to marketing, the sooner you respond to that lead, your chances of actually converting that lead increase exponentially. And so that's where that's where the automatic responder chatbot. So for example, with our platform, because we're integrated, again, we have the license plugin, our own plugin. We don't use a third party. We're directly integrated with Facebook. We're actually able to set up our chatbot to respond to that lead through their messenger as well as SMS. But specifically speaking, through Facebook Messenger, they'll get the response. So they're already on Facebook. They click on an ad, they automatically get a response through their Facebook Messenger immediately, pretty much within the first minute of them clicking on that lead. And then Autobot responder. So obviously we built it out so they can actually have a conversation. And literally the way it works is if applied properly, you wake up the next day and you look at your calendar and you have an appointment. You already have that conference call, that appointment, Zoom call, what have you, already scheduled for you on your preset availability. And it's a great tool to have. I mean, we use it in our business every day. We have, we wake up and we have our calendar already preset.
That's the dream. And it's not an easy goal to accomplish. I'm curious if your chat experience has conversational AI, because there's a difference between a question answer tree where they have to click certain buttons, or maybe they have a user input text field, but it's a preset question answer tree. There's a difference between that and them being able to type anything and having a conversational AI database interpret, understand that intent, and then respond with the proper response.
Yeah.
So do you have a conversational AI built in?
So we're working on the latter. So right now in our initial beta, what we have is a conversation tree. So we try to limit it to specific options. The idea is to lead them down a path where we can hopefully just get them to the appointment setting and have that. But that's actually something that we do have in the works. Like I said, right now we're just wrapping up the initial, I guess what we'll call it, phase 1 of the beta testing to roll it out. But I mean, we've been getting great results from it.
That's awesome. Yeah, and anything that you've been using yourself and seeing results, it speaks volumes, because you weren't creating this in a vacuum. You're actually using this every day and improving it and making it better and better, and actually closing deals from it. So that's awesome. And
and I think that's the key. We our original intent was just to create a tool for us, and so we found that it's been working so well that we said, hey, we're onto something here. And, we have a viable product that we can actually bring out to market.
Yeah, absolutely. So where do you think the industry is heading? That kind of leads us into the next question. You're building some pretty futuristic technology, some similar technology that I myself have invested in. And I'm curious what your 5-10 year projections are for the industry. No one has a crystal ball, but what do you think is coming?
Well, obviously anybody that's kind of, staying sort of in the loop with the news and where they see where things are going. I mean, just right now, go back to Zillow, they're becoming one of the largest iBuyers. They're also, have their brokerage that they're rolling out in multiple states. I think they're about 5 or 6 states right now, and that keeps growing almost daily. Redfin, OfferPad, all these iBuyers, they all have a heavy emphasis. And so that's why, like I said, we rolled out, or we're planning on rolling out what we're doing, because of the fact that I feel that the little guy, the sort of the middle of the road agent or brokerage that doesn't necessarily have the deep pockets like these larger companies do to invest in technology for themselves. We have to level the playing field somehow. So, if agents or brokers that are not have a focus or an eye towards implementing some level of technology in their business, they're pretty much going to be left behind. They're going to be priced out of one of the biggest things I see, especially here in the Florida market, and I know it's across the board nationwide, is that a lot of agents don't treat the business like a business. They don't invest in the business. A lot of times it feels like they treat it almost like, it's kind of like that whole tier with multi-level marketing, where people say, well, because if you don't treat it like a business, you're not going to get the results that you're looking for out of it. And I feel the same goes for real estate. A lot of people just think that they're going to get their license and they're going to talk to their friends, their family, and that all these deals are going to fall in their lap. And they don't really have any systems in place to really grow and scale and actually treat it as a business, as they should. And so along with that comes the use of tools that will help you stay competitive in this evolving market.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Technology is only becoming more important, advanced by COVID, right?
Absolutely.
Technology was probably kicked up 5 years in its user adoption from the COVID-19 18-month pandemic. And so with that being said, that accelerated the need to adapt to technology as a real estate professional, investor, mortgage broker. I mean, the consumer is now so comfortable doing virtual tours, Zoom. I mean,
Yep.
all this technology is so second nature now, where even a couple of years ago, I was on different, it was like 2 years ago. It's not even very far in the past, but it was pre-COVID. And I was on different sides of the county in San Diego of a partner that wanted to kind of connect and talk about a strategic partnership. And I said, hey, let's Zoom. And he's like, what's that? Right.
Yeah,
and so nowadays everyone knows it. Their children are on it. I mean, just that's one piece of software that, it's an example for everything else that has become even more user adopted. Virtual tours, 3D touring, sitting on their couch and doing so much of the transaction. So I agree that the iBuyers are a disruptive piece of technology that are really catering to the consumer. I mean, the consumer has put in their vote, right? They like that. That's why Zillow, Redfin, all of them, that's why they have so much user engagement, is because the consumer says, oh, I like this. And so you shouldn't ignore that as a real estate professional, but there are ways to, and still remain relevant, insert yourself in that process. And it does circle back, in my opinion, on the relationship building. There will always be a need for a local expert with extreme customer service. And that's how you differentiate, right? Hyper local and focusing on customer service and relationships. But you still got to be fishing upstream. You have to be fishing upstream, just like the iBuyers that are putting out, lists of homes for the buyers and putting out guides for the sellers and free home eval tools. And you have to be out there with them at the top of the funnel. Otherwise,
the technology gets your foot in the door, but like you said, the relationship, the customer service is what keeps the client engaged, and that's what'll keep them coming back or bringing getting you that next referral. But I think it's the most scalable way to grow your business much quicker is by the use of technology.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And next, I want to focus on what your process is for evaluating what to say no to, because you have a lot going on. You have a brokerage, an investment firm, a technology company. I mean, that alone is just mind-blowing for most people. I mean, one of those entities is a huge undertaking. So when you're getting different offers, vendors coming and pitching you their product, deals coming across your desk every day, what's your process for evaluating what to say no to?
Yeah. So, I say no to deals all the time, especially through our social media reach and just the relationship that we've built. We're constantly being bombarded with different deals. And so it's about having the system in place. So on the acquisition side, we have a team in place to, evaluate the deals. We have specific criteria, certain, I guess you could say, rules that we go by so that we can, make sure that, a deal that comes across our desk is going to meet those criteria before we go on to the second stage. And it's about being able to evaluate that within a matter of seconds, maybe minutes, to say, okay, this is something that's worth looking into. Okay, let's dig deeper into it. Let's actually start doing some due diligence. But we got to be able to make that determination with the amount of volume that we see coming across, our desk within a matter of, split seconds or minutes. So you're not sitting there wasting hours analyzing a deal that, you're not going to end up doing eventually.
Is it okay if we dive deeper on that, on the deal side?
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
So I'm curious what specific metrics you're looking at then. Is it NOI? Is it cap rate? Like what's the 1, 2, 3 KPIs, key productivity indicator? What are like the 1, 2, or 3 metrics you're looking at and saying, nope, doesn't meet our threshold, doesn't meet our criteria?
Yeah. So for example, with multifamily, right?
Perfect.
So, and again, this comes from education, and I'm not here to reinvent the wheel, right? So I took the mentorship, and I'm a firm believer in education and actually investing in your education yourself. And so I got this from Dave Lindell. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He has a mentorship. They're out of Boston, and the main on the multifamily, you got to look at your entry cap rate. Okay, that's something that you got to look at initially. From there, your debt service ratio and your cash on cash. And we have specific criteria that we're looking at. And obviously, it might vary from market to market, right? So like we were talking about earlier, in South Florida, the average deal you're going to get on a multifamily entry level is, if you see something coming across your desk at a 5 or 5.5%, that's actually considered a good deal. Right. But that doesn't meet our criteria. So I don't invest in multifamily. Well, let me rephrase that. We don't reposition multifamily in South Florida. We'll build in South Florida where we come in, acquire the lot, build out the construction, and then now we're the seller at a 4.5, maybe right. 5 cap on new construction. But on something that we're gonna reposition, we don't necessarily do it here. So we go to other markets where, let's say, we want to come in at somewhere around the 7 or an 8 cap, where there's still value add opportunity there, maybe bump it up another 2 points. Once it's all said and done. But, we have specific guidelines. Again, going back to the use of tools. So, again, we've invested in deal analyzers. We can, we just have certain data points that we're looking for. We're able to plug those in and get the answer we're looking for, whether it's going to be a yay or an A, and all within a matter of, seconds or minutes. And then it's also having the right team to do that, right? So again, as you mentioned, all the different verticals that I have in place, it's about having the right people in place as well. So we have the right people that's just doing that. Whereas on the lead gen platform, we have VAs that are calling the leads and handling all of that side of it. Something that I didn't mention, we're actually building out our own, I guess you want to call it, vacation rental management company. Because I also have a vacation rental portfolio, and we're recently just started the process of transitioning that and bring that in-house. So again, now we had to build that, the people for that. So we use a lot of VAs when it comes for calls, for lead generation, for certain administrative stuff. Obviously, then, we have the project managers on the construction side, on the rehab side. And then, I have other partners that do the financial analysis side. So it's just about having the right team in place, and everybody knows what role to play.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I appreciate you sharing the specific metrics that you look into for a deal. That type of specific feedback and advice is, I think, the most valuable. And I really appreciate you sharing that. So is there a question that I should have asked you, or anything that you'd like to elaborate on from earlier?
I was thinking about this earlier, and something that we haven't touched on that I'm really, really big on is mindset. As an entrepreneur, You're going to have your ups and downs, right? You're going to have your good days, your bad days. It doesn't even necessarily have to be a bad day. It's just you're going to encounter some challenges and obstacles along the way. And this is something that I literally apply on a day-to-day basis, where you can't allow yourself, you have to have the right mindset, right? You can't allow yourself to get bogged down on the challenge. Yes, you have to identify the challenge, the problem. I don't even like using the word problem, right? Like I prefer to call it a challenge, because what I've realized is that it's just something else that has to be overcome, or you just have to find the solution. So when you're focused on the solution, your mind is more open towards different ideas and different aspects. So when you're focused on the problem, believe it or not, it's harder to arrive at that solution, or it may take you longer to arrive at the solution. So the minute you identify that problem, that challenge, then you have to automatically shift your focus to what are the different solutions. And Tony Robbins uses the analogy, a race car driver, they're focused on the road. Because if you look at the wall, what happens? If you're going 200 miles per hour and you look at the wall, you're actually gonna run into the wall.
Yeah.
End up at the wall, right? So that's what we are. We're going 200 miles per hour. I gotta be focused on where I want to be, not where I don't want to be. So not on the problem, but where I want to arrive at is at that solution. So that's what we got to focus on. So, and one of the reasons I'm so big on mindset is because from personal experience, I remember in my 20s, when I was first starting off in the mortgage and everything, I wasn't a big believer in it. To me, it was just like, hogwash. It's like, things are going to get done. It wasn't something that I focused on. And then when I encountered the difficulties of 2008, when the market crash hit, and I found myself having to close the business, having to deal with my own properties that were basically underwater by hundreds of thousands of dollars in a matter of months, and all these different obstacles, I had to make a decision. And, it didn't come easy, where, I had to kind of learn the hard way that having the mindset really does play a huge role in your ability to get through difficult times. Otherwise, you'll get buried under it. So, that's something that to me, it's actually a big thing. So I work on mindset on a daily basis.
Amazing. And it's critical. So important. How can my listeners contact you?
So the easiest way to contact me, you can go on social media, on Instagram, on Facebook, Jorge Fajardo KPI. You can find me there. You can also reach out to us on isum360.com if you're interested in learning more about the lead gen platform. And, I'm always accessible. I always respond to my messages. And so I'm pretty easy to get a hold of.
Awesome. Jorge Fajardo, everyone, doing some big things in Florida. Great to connect with you. Yes. I learned a lot on this episode. And I know that my listeners got a lot of value from it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening. If you want to accomplish your real estate goals, then I highly suggest downloading my free Ultimate Real Estate Goal Setting Framework. The link is in the description of the show, and it will help you break down your annual income goal into the amount of phone calls, appointments, or open houses you need in order to achieve that goal. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.